A blessed day to all of you who are here with us in this shrine, and also those fellow worshippers in the other parts of the world joining us in this worship. Both readings today speak about the law, the importance of the law. And in the context of Lent, what is its significance, or why is it inserted in this Lenten journey? It has to do with what we call the catechumenate, or the preparation of those who are to be baptized in Easter. And part of the training of the catechumens is the familiarization, the learning of these commandments. That's why we have part of this now, Lent being preparation for baptism. That's why it reflects also in our readings this concern of training the catechumens according to the law of God. And this law is taught to them, and they have to bring back and recite and present that they have learned after some time to the authorities of the church. That's why we have historically these readings on the law are placed in our Lenten lectionary. What meaning do commandments of the law God has for us? The basic question maybe that we have. For some, the law is the summary and the of all morality. For others, a narrow and unfashionable regulations, and for others may consider it as obstacles to freedom of the gospel. But we have Jesus telling us today that He came to not to abolish, but to perfect the law. The perfection and the fullness that Jesus gives to the law and the prophets does not consist in a scrupulous compliance with the legal precepts. That is why Jesus speaks not only of the law, but of the prophets, law and the prophets, he would say. And it is known that the prophets distinguish themselves by being critical to the empty and formal legalism of the law, which forgets the spirit of the law of justice, which consists of this concern, real concern for the poor and the helpless. That's why in verse 20 of the same chapter clarifies this perfectly. For I tell you that unless your justice exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven, Jesus said. The words of Jesus cannot be understood then in this legalistic manner. On the contrary, the context of the Sermon of the Mount helps us understand that the fullness of the law and the prophets is found in the commandment of love. And love is not that generic philanthropy, goodness that does good to humanity in bulk or in general, but a personal attitude that without renouncing, of course, these big projects, pays attention to the small, specific situations that seem to to be less important, but that gives the measure of true personal love. Jesus speaks to the crowds, but he enters also to the house of men and women with names and faces, to whom he also brings salvation in persons. He feeds the hungry masses, but he also touches and allows himself to be touched to heal that man or woman of flesh and blood, less important. And without those healing, as it may seem to us, history would have moved forward without significant changes. To Jesus, as we see, it does not seem that way. When he speaks to us today about the fullness of the law and the importance of its less important precepts, Jesus is telling us that small details are very important. If what we are talking about, of course, is love, the one that God has for us, and the one that we must live in our daily life. And it is that life that is made up of minor details, of apparently insignificant moments. We cannot reserve ourselves only for the big events, big projects, which may never come. It is in the day-to-day of small fidelities, apparently insignificant gestures, and minute situations in which we risk the authenticity of Christian love, our Christian life, of our following of Jesus, and of the commandment of love, which leads us to that fullness and perfection of the law and of the prophets. That is, the principles and norms and gifts and charisms. As Jesus says, using this contrast so typical in the biblical wisdom, to be great in the kingdom of heaven, you have to be attentive to small here on earth, live it and teach it. As we see then for Israel, the expression of fidelity to God is the observance of the law, as part of that covenant with God. The commandments were the way to free oneself from all forms of slavery, from other gods, to free us from selfishness, from rancor, from the exploitation of one person by another. The commandments were the sign of God's people belonging to God, and they were proud of it, having received that law of God, for no other God has done and has shown his closeness to his people. And they testified to that love of God and neighbor, that they cannot be separated. As we journey in this Lenten season, may we give and pay attention also to this love of God and neighbor, even in small measures, not only in those big moments, but rather in the details of our day-to-day encounter with people, done with love and charity. Amen.